Goeiedag, good day, fellow South Africans and citizens of the world.
I've been looking around for salvation. I've been looking around for the truth. All around me I see frustration, and I looked all over till I found you. I sit and listen to your stories, and you're telling me, please don't worry. Lot in this world you should know, and love in life is where you should go. If you're looking for somewhere to go, if you're looking for someone to know, if you're looking for someone to guide you, then love in life will guide you.
Goeienaand, good evening, fellow South Africans and citizens of the world. And tonight we're talking about a very different subject. And Richard is bursting to go. I see that he's just sent me a little message, so let's get on with this. Tonight we're talking to Richard Lamas, who is a capitalist, the opposite to the communist ANC, and the political philosophy underwritten by the free world. Over the weekend, gold, a symbol of capitalism, hit US dollars 2,000 for the first time in history. If you had moved your rands into gold a year ago, as I suggested, a 20,000 rand investment in 1 ounce of physical gold would today be worth 34,000 rand an ounce. While physical silver a year ago was 200 rand, it has now doubled to over 400 rand an ounce. And that's quite an extraordinary growth, as you've got to admit. Now, Richard is a prepper with many hobbies, but his focus today is on a new political party he is establishing called the Free Market Fighters. Let's get Richard on so we can find out more about his political party. Let me get him.
Good evening, Scotty.
Hi, Richard. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. Have you got my visuals, or do we need to do anything on my side here?
I've only got your little icon at this stage.
Okay. Yeah, like I said, I don't use Skype a lot, but I guess I'm going to be using it a lot in future.
I think
so. Let me go down to the menu and look. More options.
Are you on a computer or a mobile phone?
Laptop.
A laptop. Go right down to the bottom, in the middle.
Yes.
And you'll see there's a little camera, a little circle.
Yes.
You click on that and turn it on.
Right. Oh, the camera.
Yeah.
My apologies. I muted you by mistake for a second. Good, good, good. I think you've got me now, or not?
Let me just have a look.
Wait, no, I was there. Can you see me yet?
Not yet.
Okay, wait. And now?
Now I can. That's much better. Much better.
Okay, let me just adjust the angle a little wee bit.
Yeah.
Get me more or less into the center. Yeah, I need to go this way. Okay, then I'm blocking my little sign there. Yeah, but we'll expose them as we go along.
ANC
Okay.
must fall. I like it. I love it. I think the ANC is actually in collapse. I think that's going to happen
Yeah,
in the
well,
next month.
yeah, they need to be replaced.
All right. Now, Richard, before we get into your political party, tell us about your life growing up in South Africa before 1994 and after 1994.
Well, yeah, I'm 55 years old now, gonna turn 56 on the 9th of August. That's coming up soon. And came to South Africa as a little lad with my parents who worked at the Chamber of Mines in the mining industry. And I spent, I had a great little time growing up. My first little school was a countryside Christian school between Lichtenburg and Kulini called Gadauer Gemeindeschule, a farmer's school, if you wish.
Right.
We learned to grow vegetables there too, so that was absolutely fantastic being in the countryside. And then German school Pretoria, German school Johannesburg, Wits University, then the old SADF, and then I went straight to work for Anglo-American Corporation. They had paid for my studies, so it wasn't even an option not to go. But yeah, I mean, how fantastic can it be to walk straight into a job, you know?
Yeah.
And then I worked on the gold mines for about 6 years on the Klerksdorp side, so I stayed that side. Then I got a transfer to the platinum mines, and then I went up towards Tabazimbi, but closest town is Northam, sort of an hour past Sun City. That should sort of explain it. Bushveld, yeah.
Okay.
Snake Valley. Platinum mines, had a fantastic time there. Beautiful little countryside mining village, no crime. You know, you could let your kids play in the streets, that sort of town. Everyone knew everyone else, so you had to wave hello when you drive around, lest someone take offense that you didn't say hello. So you were constantly waving your palm up and down from the steering wheel.
You gotta love the
Different
small
life.
towns.
Yeah. Yeah, it's way different to the big towns where some folks are so shy they don't even know their neighbors, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. Which is sort of sad in many ways.
Very sad.
Yeah, okay, and then, I left the mine then in the year 2000, and I went to the CSIR Mining Tech Division, Applied Mining Engineering Research, and they were based here in Johannesburg, although the main CSIR campus is in Pretoria. But the CSIR bought up the Chamber of Mines at some stage, so that sort of stayed in Johannesburg. So then I was there for 4 years. It was a fantastic time being steeped in the depth of the most advanced mining technology in the world, because South Africa is sort of a leader in that technology.
Yeah.
If you had to choose one country, this is it.
Especially with
that
the
was
deep
fantastic.
mines.
Yeah. So I enjoyed that quite a lot, and I learned a lot. And in 2004, I took the brave step of leaving formal employment, and then I did consulting work, you know, as an example for smaller mining companies that don't want to employ a full-time department of geotechnics, then maybe spend a day giving advice a week there, and a lot of traveling, but amazingly instructive and good for learning as one visits so many different mines and situations.
Right.
And I also got involved in sales work for another company on mining support products. So I was also their sales manager. So I was juggling both little balls. But the whole master plan was eventually, seeing that I had my own freedom being a consultant, that I could get involved in developing my own little products and hopefully make it a success and sell them to the mines myself and manufacture them myself. I stumbled a few times, eventually got it right. So I've got a tiny workshop that I own and manage, which is in Krugersdorp. I'm still running.
Everybody seems to live in Krugersdorp.
I think.
Or Pretoria.
Yeah. Well, Krugersdorp is rather large. Yeah. One might not think so, but if you drive around, it is actually very big.
I lived in Krugersdorp back in the 1980s.
Yeah.
A suburb called Rantendal.
Oh, beautiful. Yeah, that's the beautiful side. Yeah.
Yeah. Now.
Yeah, so all that expanded quite a bit. Yeah.
Yeah. So you've got a very big mining background. That's basically your background. And I did pick up from your voice that you have a German accent. So I guess you grew up before you came to South Africa and Germany.
Well, the 6 years in Germany seems to have rubbed off, eh? I learned marching at a young age then, eh?
Yeah. Now tell me, just on a political aspect, because we're going to be talking politics tonight. How has South Africa changed post 1994 in your eyes?
It's actually a shocker to have to answer a question like that, because it brings back all the things that have gone wrong to any person who is able to observe and make sense of what goes on around them. It is so shocking that South Africa should, if it is managed well, should have a top 5 worldwide living standards for its citizens.
Yeah.
And not be heading for the bottom 10% in the world. It's shocking how it's been mismanaged. Think of it. I mean, even the sanctions were gone.
Yeah.
How easy can business be? Yeah. And I'm sorry, I'm going to use the odd swear word. To screw it up in that time in South Africa, that's got everything from the coastlines to a superb climate, mineral wealth, agricultural wealth, absolutely stunning tourism potential, is all here. It is all here. It's got manufacturing capability, technology. It's just unbelievable how someone can actually mess it up.
Well, I think the problem is, I think the problem is that the ANC, the people in the ANC, do not have a moral compass. They're just there to go and clean up for themselves.
Yes, and sadly, it seems they also lack education and common sense.
Yeah, incompetency. We call it the L factor. We call it the L factor on this channel. The logic factor missing in action. You just have to look what's happening with these regulations and the lockdown. Now, Richard, explain to people watching. We've got well over 300 people. We've got nearly 400 people watching right now. Explain to people watching, why does capitalism work where communism doesn't work?
Well, it's sort of quite easy. In the free market capitalist system, the citizens do business amongst themselves the way they see best in a supply and demand situation. So products that are bad won't sell and will become extinct, and the good ones will survive, which is obviously good because you don't want to buy nonsense. So, and you will pay what you think is fair, and the chap that manufactures it will take that into account. So eventually it balances itself out fantastically well, and it's self-regulated and it's fast. Government's job is to stay out of this. Okay, they have their own jobs, rails and these large super infrastructure projects. That's a different matter. But they must stay out of entrepreneurial business and keep the... Right. And their job is to collect taxes on an efficient system, thereby having enough money to do all the other things that are necessary, and everyone benefits and everyone's happy and has a high living standard.
Well, I guess Australia is a good example of that, isn't it?
Yes.
Oh, okay, so what is communism all about then? What's the difference with communism?
Well, it's complete the opposite. It's communism takes the means of production away from the individual and essentially confiscates it and puts it into the state's hands to be run by some committee, and the proceeds are then supposedly dished out in an equal manner. So it completely stifles productivity and creativity by having this heavy-handed approach. And we can see worldwide, perhaps in 1920, it was sort of untested in the world on the grand scale. And okay, fair enough, let someone test this system and idea. It was tested several times and it was found to be an abject failure for its people. And what sort of people copy and paste failed systems? We're talking about the ANC here and the EFF. There are other problems with communism. They annihilate all religions. It's a godless society. Your state becomes a substitute. They annihilate family values. Your sons and daughters belong to the state. I believe it's an evil system.
Now, let's look at China and Russia today. I mean, they're basically advanced communist states. They've reached that advanced stage where just about everybody is just on the breadline, and right at the top, with the Chinese Communist Party, you've got the privileged, you've got the Chi-Chings, and you've got these guys who are multi-billionaires, and they are basically they're stuck there. No one can get rid of them. They run the country. There's no democracy. That is like an advanced form of communism. And in Russia, you got Putin, who's apparently been now recognized as probably the wealthiest person in the world today, with assets about $200 billion US, who again is now kind of stuck there, and he's got his little cartel around him. And if you look at South Africa, you got the same thing happening. You got the black privileged, the ANC government, the politicians, the cadres, and all these guys at the top, and everybody else has been pushed down to the breadline. Do you see that similarity between where South Africa's going and where Russia and China are?
Well, South Africa is being governed by far less skilled people than Russia and China.
Know that, yeah.
And so, let me comment on Russia and China a little bit. Russia has, however, since the late 80s glasnost period, started dismantling their heavy-handed communism. It's sort of a mixture of communism and semi-free markets now, which is quite beneficial to them now. Interestingly enough, Putin his people love him quite a lot.
They do.
And I think they are turning over a new leaf. Yeah, okay, one must always ask, when someone's in power so long, he's more like a king than an elected person, and one has to ask why. And like you said, okay, now his tentacles of power are everywhere, but in effect he's the king. Russia is a completely different kettle of fish. They have turned into massive Chinese fascists, the new Chinese Nazis in the world. And if you follow what is happening in the South China Sea, how they are harassing all their neighbors.
Yeah.
China is harassing all its neighbors now. How India, USA, UK, and Australia have formed a military naval assistance pact, sharing military harbors and bases now. Looks like Japan will be joining in. All the countries affected by also using the South China Sea have realized now they need to spruce up their military. The more one studies what's happening in China, the more hardcore problematic things you will uncover. For instance, you probably don't know that most Chinese so-called civilian fishing fleets are paramilitary naval vessels. They've all been trained in naval combat and we're civvies, and they've got their weapons hidden under deck.
Wow.
This might be news to you. They've got several thousands of such ships all over the world. But do not worry too much. The United States found this out 12 years ago. Yeah, so there are many little things that folks don't know. And if you dig a little bit deeper, you can find this out. As an example, I think Chinese are oppressing the Uyghurs.
Yeah, up in the west side of China, they've got them all in an internment camp, something like 1 million people, because they've got a religious belief that does not fit with the Communist Party.
My figures are over 20 million.
Wow.
Now, that's a substantial amount in a re-education prison camp.
Wow.
And you know how they invading India's borders, shooting incidents there.
Well, look at Hong Kong.
Yes, and Hong Kong is a huge financial banking node.
Yeah, well, not anymore.
UK, British, American.
Yeah, they're moving up.
In effect, they were attacking the Western currencies by attacking or doing what they're doing to Hong Kong. Do you know that in the last year and a half, Japanese airspace has been invaded 1,270 odd times? That's more than once. It's 2 to 3 times a day by Chinese spotter planes, fighter planes, and bomber planes.
Wow.
They're harassing Japan around the clock. Each time Japan intercepts with F-16s, and by forcing a collision course, forces them to turn around. These are little things that I think you didn't know. So things are hotting up. There are 3 United States battle naval groups, each with an aircraft carrier and destroyer and huge assortment of missile frigates and about 10 subs each. That's the biggest contingent ever in that part of the ocean.
I think the most disturbing thing for South Africa when it comes to China is that you have this debt trap that China loves to use to get these developing countries into debt, and then because they can't pay back, they say, that's all right, just give us your ports and we'll just laugh off the debt. So that way they basically take over the strategic parts of a country, which they then control and militarize. So they're ready to just take that country when they want. Which brings us to South Africa. South Africa is increasingly going in debt to China. Now, China has got areas in Limpopo where they're developing these huge industrial areas which are going to be like little Chinas in South Africa. And extraordinarily, the Chinese population, for those people who are not in South Africa who don't know this, that the Chinese people are honorary blacks. So when we talk about Chinese people in South Africa and employment, they are black economic empowerment compatible because they are honorary blacks. Whereas the white population that's been there since Jan van Riebeeck arrived in 1652 are sitting on the sidelines because they're the wrong skin color. And this brings us to your political party. Okay, now your political party is called the Free Market Fighters, and one of its key aims is to get rid of these racist employment policies. Tell us about that.
Yeah, well, enough is enough, and the battle does in fact have to be fought in the political sphere and the parliament, because that's where the major abuses happen. And maybe it's time to have a slightly more aggressive party in there. That's why I decided to add the word fighters to this party also, just like some other party that you know.
Like Economic Freedom Fighters. The only problem I have with your name is that it's very similar to Economic Freedom Fighters, although you're right on the other side of the spectrum.
Yes, they'll soon notice that I'm going to be a thorn in their little sides. Yeah, well, one word is the same, yes. It'll be clear very soon
The
which way
differences.
it's. Yeah, and I mean, um, it is exceptionally suitable for minorities to support this party, but if the blacks knew what was good for them in terms of having economic policies that turn South Africa into a Garden of Eden, in other words, free market policies,
Yeah.
perhaps they should also vote for this party.
I think the problem is there, Richard, that a lot of the African population just see the short-term handouts by the ANC, and that's what they focus on. They don't look at.
Unfortunately.
I think there is something that Fiona Timms really brought into focus for me, and we call her the White Zulu, and she's actually here on the side chat, and that focus is that the Zulu language is a very, very it's an incomplete language. It doesn't have much logic attached to it. Now, imagine growing up with a language where certain things, let's take finance, but imagine growing up as a child where finance was not part of the discussion or the language. There was no words about finance. Now, you grow up and you suddenly land up in a society where everything is about finance, and you will have no idea what the heck is going on. And if you look at if you look at Zulu, for example, there are no words relating to maintenance or the future, or so those sort of philosophies are completely missing in their grounding and their understanding. Which is why, if you look at Eskom, for example, maintenance went out the window. They didn't worry about it, and that's just happened all over in different parts of South Africa. It's had a huge impact under the ANC government. I believe the inadequacies of languages like Zulu when it comes to the understanding of concepts that we, through English and Afrikaans, completely understand.
Yes, and also the fact that they employ people in high positions that are completely underskilled in what they do, or they have if perhaps they do have a degree, it's in something completely different to which the portfolio they work in, which is absolutely ridiculous. This would never happen in any private company. That's, you interview for a certain set of skills and experience. If you don't have it, well, some other guy will get the job because he can do what is needed. Take the Minister of Police as an example, Mr.
Bekele. We call him Shlari Motsenang.
Yeah. How can someone become a Minister of Police whose qualifications are a primary school teacher?
Absolutely crazy.
It's ludicrous.
Absolutely crazy.
How can a person like that lead 270,000 people? I'm just guessing the number of police.
Yeah.
And then again, why so many police? They just look and observe. They never arrest anyone.
Yeah.
So we don't actually need them.
We know the police. We know the police force is an absolute disgrace in South Africa. And it's very sad for those police who do have ethical standards, because they are being pulled down by there's so many, an increasing number of police who are ANC appointees who are just corrupt. I mean, that's all they are.
Yeah, no, fair enough.
I have to tell you, just on this point, Richard, I have to tell you on this point, there's an interview I listened to where one of these hitmen who goes around killing people, okay, that's his job, he goes around shooting people in South Africa, and he said openly, he said, look, what we do before we're going to do a job on someone, we actually contact our contact in the police force, make sure he's nearby, so that when we shoot and kill this guy, he goes and investigates, and of course he loses the docket because he's on the take. That's how incredibly it is. That's what's going on in South Africa.
Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah. Also, I mean, the laws are not in the favor of the police officer. Like take these petrol bombings of trucks and the blocking of freeways and that sort of economic sabotage and terrorism. the laws need to be changed so the police can aggressively sort this nonsense out.
Yeah. Well,
So, yeah.
under Becky Selle, they're taking the guns away from the population who own them legally and putting them in the hands of the crims. It's just ridiculous. Now, let's get back to your political party. We'll get back into this other stuff in a moment. But what inspired you to set up your new political party?
Yeah, it's been in the back of my mind for several years now, I guess 4 or 5 years, and I've occasionally mentioned it to my inner circle of friends and kept an eye on some of what's happening. And I predicted the outcomes of the last 2 national elections to a high degree of accuracy, by the way.
Right.
And what has happened in the last few months since lockdown and the last 25 years since white people essentially have all served a life sentence as BEE, that life sentence is over now. 25 years are finished. That is considered a life sentence. We all served a life sentence now. I want this life sentence now to be lifted in its entirety and all BEE repealed. But
you know what I find you know what I find extraordinary, Richard, is that there's some white people in South Africa who still believe that things are fine, that everything is just dandy. I mean, what planet are those people living on?
Yeah, it is a strange sort of hope and denial, which if one follows it objectively, one should get really scared if you follow the trends and how things are accelerating all the time in the wrong way.
Yeah. Okay, let's get back to your party.
Since lockdown, I'm one of the lucky ones, in a sense that my income and work is running at 50% capacity. Mm-hmm. Because the mines are sort of running at 50% capacity and my little workshop supplies the mines. So
right.
Most months I make a slight loss and then I break even like this month. But compared to the horrific total job loss of millions of South Africans due to this incompetent lockdown, I have no problem with personal hygiene regulations and wearing the masks and a bit of social distancing. Why lock down the economy? It's just a severe flu. We didn't lock it down the last 50 years. We didn't lock it down in 1968 when the severe flu came by. There's another problem that they didn't think about. When you slow infection rates down, as they do now, you allow the virus more residence time in the host, in other words, the humans, a longer residence time, and that favors mutation. In the Spanish flu 1918 was the first wave, and 1919 was the second wave, which killed 5 times as many people. So there are many arguments one can use to point out that lockdown, like it is done in this way, flattening the curve, as they say, might in fact be not a good idea.
But I have to tell you, Richard, that they did not flatten the curve in South Africa, and they could never have flattened the curve in South Africa because the lockdown could never have worked in South Africa because the whole basis of a lockdown is social distancing, which is impossible in the townships. You know, why have a lockdown when it can't work? This is the L factor, the logic factor, missing in action.
And the taxis that are allowed to be populated at close quarters. Yeah, and I bet if they knew in winter how many poor people, the homeless, had died on the streets, it would be interesting to go to the morgues and get some statistics.
Because they're suggesting that their death rate is much lower than average. I think it's because, just like everything else, the incompetency of the mortuaries and those who actually do the forensics, it's completely missing the real impact of the coronavirus. They've had a 17% increase in the death rate in South Africa in the last few months. It's gone up 17% higher than it should be based on, history. And they haven't realized that is the coronavirus that's happening in the townships.
Well, Sweden and Belarus did not have lockdown, and it's completely over. It's all gone.
That's right.
But
Anyway, we got off our we got off our subject. There's so much to talk about here.
The point is, yes, one gets, to use a word used recently a lot in South Africa, one gets quite gatvol.
Gatvol is a good word.
Yeah, well, I can run my workshop with 3 to 4 hours a day. So I've got spare time.
Yeah.
I'm not going to sit and do nothing and read, I love reading history and things like that, but I am not the type of person to sit back and let myself be fucked over. I told you I was going to use swear words.
Excuse the language, guys.
Yeah, beep, beep, I do apologize. The time has come. Then you ask yourself, could you have done it better? And by golly, you have to say 10 times.
Yeah, a million times, I would say. Now, okay.
Why is it not competing in that space?
Yeah. Now, let's get back to your political party. Okay, we know that it's capitalist principles or free market principles as opposed to the Marxist principles of the ANC, which are basically run by the South African Communist Party, which kind of sums it up.
Yes,
now,
it's a tripartite alliance, yes.
Yeah. Now, tell us about how you will actually run this new political party. Will you take part, for example, in national, regional, and local upcoming elections? And how do people actually join your party?
Right. Okay. So what's going to happen? The next national elections are in 2024. They are 5 years apart. Remember, we had them last year, 2019. How time flies. The next municipal elections are next year. I think an exact date has not been set due to all this uncertainty now. I would think it's in the second half of next year, which actually is suitable. It gives one more time to prepare. In South Africa, we have 278 municipalities.
And about 250 of them are bankrupt. Crazy.
Yeah, don't tell me that. Yeah, 44 are large district municipalities of those 278. 226 are the smaller local ones, if you wish, and 8 are the big metros. Right, so yes, there will be leadership positions becoming available, and there will be interviews. We're going to do things slightly differently. People will get rated according to their skill sets and experience. Obviously, it would help fantastically if a person wants to get involved in Bloemfontein. Well, fantastic. If you'd basically have to stay in Bloemfontein or close by to do it. So I mean, it's help to have a Cape Townian. So yeah, obviously that plays a part.
So how will these interviews? How will these interviews take place?
Well, first, you see, I'm doing a fast forward on getting this all set up now. I should have done this presentation perhaps only in 2 weeks' time, but I wanted to do it now whilst the iron is hot and I'm energetic. In the next week or so, I need to finalize the Constitution based on all these things that we talk about now, put it in solid writing. A good, let's say, 25-page or 30-pager, spelling out these things in much more detail. It would need a lot more thought. I will have some meetings with some other folks skilled in the art, a little workshopping meetings, to discuss these things with them and get some other input also, study other parties' documents, and then once the Constitution is ready, and of course it needs to go with a Indeed, a foundation, if one wants to take part in national elections, one needs 500 plus.
Right.
Is a citizens that essentially sign a document that they support the establishment of this political party. I just collected about 60 signatures the other day in a church service. So that will not be difficult at all. I would think that one could also do this by email. Essentially, all that's needed is a little sentence that the person, you have to put your full name, your SA ID number, and sign it, and state that you support the establishment of the Free Market Fighters political party. And then you could email this to me, and I could include your support in the list, and you might be one of the famous first 500 people.
So the new ruling party in South Africa. Now, your email address is freemarketfighters@protonmail.com.
Yes.
Okay, I've dropped that into the side chat. Now, do you have a website or a Facebook page?
I will be getting some chaps in the next few days. I'll make a firm decision. I'm gonna tomorrow get 3 or 4 quotes and decide on one of the lads to get it done. So
if there are people here, if there are people here who build web pages, they should contact you. Now, I know Clinton, who we had on just over a week ago. He builds web pages, and I think his rates are really good. I'll see if I can get Clinton in touch with you about that. But
that's fantastic. Yeah, just make sure he gets the email address. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Needs to be done. It needs to be done quick.
Okay. Now, so what we're looking at here is like the birth of a new political party, because you don't even have a web page. This is the first time we're actually talking about this new political party.
Well, that's why it's so exciting. This is the first time we're going public from the church.
I see.
Meeting.
I see you don't even have a logo yet.
No, but do not worry. It will be.
As long as it's not that. As long as it's not that sort of Illuminati thing, the one with the eye.
No, my dad is a very good graphic design artist, as a sort of so I'll let him do it and come up with a few suggestions.
Right. Good.
Try and keep it simple.
Now give me a second, Richard.
I need to decide on the colors also. Yeah.
Give me a second. I'm just addressing those watching the live stream right now. We've got close to 500 people watching. Guys, if you've got questions you want to ask, please just put them in the side chat, and I'll put those to Richard a bit later. And here we go. We got one from Mars. Mara Faris says, Richard Lamas, time is running out. The minority citizens of South Africa, the way they are slaughtering us.
It is indeed running out. I believe the battle has to be fought on multiple fronts, so I support many other organizations also that are doing different things, but helping the minorities. I am a big fan of ULA. I'm a supporter of Zuidland Republic. Yes. I do not support the other organization with the runaway policy at all. Yeah, it is a problem because fighting the battle on the political front takes a lot of time, but it has to be done. Believe me, it really needs to be done.
Yeah.
There's no quick fix for this.
Right. I just wanted to address the side chat. Marlena, Clinton is the guy I was thinking of. If you could perhaps put Clinton in touch with Richard, that might be a good idea. That's to do with the website, Richard. Now, okay, so the policies of the new political party, the Free Market Fighters, are to defend the constitutional rights, the right to freedom, life, liberty, travel, etc., etc., etc. What if your party was in power right now? How would they be handling this coronavirus? Differently, how would they be handling it?
we would have none of this economic lockdown at all. We would base it on the herd immunity principle.
Like in Sweden.
By all means, we will use wash hands and use masks, but the economy would carry on as per normal. Yes, we would have to make sure, we protect the vulnerable folks, old age homes. There'll be a few minor little provisions like that for sure, but essentially the economy would be fully functioning.
Right.
I bet there are more people dying of hunger on the streets than of COVID-19 due to poverty.
Yeah. Well, the way I look at it, Richard, is if that 500 billion rand that South Africa got had been used to just isolate the elderly and everybody else had just continued on living as before, I think by now you would have had herd immunity and you'd have far less deaths and the economy would have been saved. But they've just destroyed everything.
I think so, and we know in South Africa we cannot afford. I mean, we got negatively marked by the ratings agencies to junk before COVID. We can't afford the economic damage of lockdown. Again, there's a lack of vision and foresight in the political party. Can they not foresee these things? Let's not elaborate on the lack of mental capacity. But it needs to be asked, these questions.
Yeah.
How did these buffoons get into power? So expect a lot of sparks in public meetings.
Yeah. So that you're sounding rather like that new, what's it called, the party set up by the ex-Johannesburg mayor, who used to be a DA guy. He's got set up this new political party, which is got similar type. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, he's set up similar ideas.
Well, good. My question to them is, why did it take them so long to leave a corrupt party or an inefficient party like the DA? One ANC guy and one DA guy. One from the plastic Democrats, one from the and just shakes one's head.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we need something fresh. I don't think we need recycled politicians. I must be honest. We need men of honor, women of honor, fresh people, not those whose hands are tainted from the corruption and excesses of mismanagement in the past. That's my answer to these other politicians. I don't think we need the old politicians. Yeah, I'm generalizing, but that's my feeling.
Yeah,
it's over.
I think one of your greatest challenges, Richard, is going to be finding those people that could fill the gaps that you have in building your party. How are you going to do that?
Well, there'll have to be a lot of personal interviews. I want people with strong personalities on board. Otherwise, it's just sitting in meetings and nothing happens. So that would need a lot of, person-to-person chats, interviews, selections. And there's a lot of work ahead. But you know what? I know the people are there. I know they are.
Yeah. But do you have a constitution set up at this stage?
No. It'll be ready in about 10 days. You see, that's the important part. It is the very important part. It needs a lot of careful thought how to encode these free market principles, and it has to mesh with our current SA constitution also. Remember, it cannot contradict, but it will interpret things in a free market way. And a lot of these laws that were passed by the ANC will have to be repealed. All these inhuman racist laws just must go.
Yeah, like black economic empowerment.
Yeah, it must go. I'm sick and tired of being a slave. I really am. I will not have it anymore.
Yeah.
No more.
Now,
And
you've got here in your points that you support family values, reduce state interference in citizens' lives. Now, that is a basic philosophy of the capitalist system, is to let people just get on with their lives and not be interfered with. And I think that's a huge issue that people in South Africa have, especially as a result of this lockdown, is how the state is just completely dictating what they can and can't do in every single area.
I mean, who are they to tell me I cannot buy a cigar for myself? Yeah? If there are a minority of individuals who abuse alcohol, well, then they need to be sorted out. Don't brand the rest of society as criminals. It is completely unacceptable to be treated like a toddler by the ANC.
Yeah.
Never mind, we have 400 ministers in parliament. How is it that a gang of 19 decides to hijack South Africa?
Yeah, I get it. Now,
They should be ashamed of themselves.
you do have a Telegram group, don't you?
I do, and it's essentially called Free Market Fighters also, but all my
I'll just
Telegram
put that
group-
in the side chat, just so people can, if they want to, they can just have a look at your
Well, they
Telegram
should
group.
join. It's,
Yeah.
it's free of charge. It's a channel. So at this point in time, it's not a discussion group. There will be a discussion group later on. Initially, it's just a channel.
Yeah.
I created it today, so there will be information. The progress on the party, the little internal matters. Documents that are relevant to this. They'll be loaded up there very soon, and people can keep up to date with what's happening. And the nice thing about these channels, I think one can have either 100 or 200,000 members. So essentially, there's no shortage in the short term of being able to keep in touch.
Right.
Yeah, and it's got a ZA in front. ZA, as in South Africa, Free Market Fighters.
Right. Now, I've got a couple of questions here for you from Renelle, and she says, where does Richard Lamos live currently? What is his credentials? What is the party's values, and how do they plan to provide actual change?
Well, I'm an engineer. I used to dislike politicians, and now I've decided one needs to enter that sphere to make some change. And one has to use one's personal energy. Otherwise, it's just like same old same. And it's not an easy, it's not going to be it's a life's work essentially. Give it a good 10, 15, 20 years. And those who feel energetic enough and feel the mission, let them join in. Please, join up.
Do you have a group of people around you that advise you?
I'm a member of quite a few societies. And so in an informal sense, I have a lot of highly skilled and wise people that I can turn to for advice.
Are they aware of your plans?
This is rather hot off the press. So
they aren't aware?
Most of them are not. I will be selecting some of them for some good advice. One of them is a DA councillor in the southern suburbs of Johannesburg.
Right.
That I know quite well from the past. So that will be, I think, very good discussions to be had. Perhaps I can get one or two people to join up. I think it'll be quite useful. And those that listen, there might be people who've been municipal councillors before. So that's all a very good experience.
Right.
They might be interested in a change of tack.
Right. Okay, so what we're talking about is really a long shot in reality, because you're starting like it's like a blank piece of paper that you've got, and you're just now starting to put the lines of what your party's about into the public space, because
Exactly so.
up
It's
until
quite
now
exciting.
you haven't said anything about it.
Exactly so, and it's sort of quite exciting at the same time.
Right. Okay. And let's talk hypothetically. Let's say that you become the official opposition in the South African government. What would be the first thing that you would be fighting for?
Yeah, well, that's I haven't thought about it in the sense of what would be the absolutely first thing.
I'm just trying to get an understanding of where your party is going, or your new fledgling party is going.
I think we need to get certain things sorted out that people expect to get sorted out. People expect the police to make arrests on this massive multi-billion corruption scandals left, right, and center. It's not happening. So that needs to be sorted out, and Gentle is not going to do it. And the rot and the accountability, and the biggest accountability, must always be in the top structure. And that's why it's not happening. They're covering for themselves. Those that are guilty need to be arrested and face a court of law. So that's something important that needs to be done, and it needs political will. We all know that Eskom needs to be sorted out. In fact, all the parastatals almost all of them are failing, so
right,
they all get onto the hot list to be fixed. One of the important things is that we have far too many civil servants compared to, say, other economies and in relation to population size.
Well, I think the IMF are going to sort that out.
I heard a figure the other day from Daily Maverick that between 50 and 60% of South Africa's GDP goes to state employees' salaries.
Yeah, that's right.
I could not believe it. I mean,
overpaid and underworked.
It's like having let's say we had a judo club and we had 80 members in the judo club and we had 45 sitting on the committee. It's clearly ludicrous.
Or you had 60 trainers.
Yeah.
Now,
so
just talking about money.
Cut into half. So it needs a hatchet job, we used to call it in the business restructuring.
Yeah. Now Richard,
consultancy comes in and says, we're gonna go with you the whole day and see what you do or not do. Right.
Now,
and then half of those jobs surely can go and so on. There's so much to do. It's one needs to prioritize it. Yeah.
Well, it's the difference between capitalism and communism. Now, talking about money, how are you going to fund this political party? Because it's not cheap. It's going to cost you millions of rands.
Well, the initial small-scale funding, paying for the website, this, that, the other, and the first few weeks and months, I will pay for it myself. I will, however, be approaching some companies for funding. Take tobacco companies as an example.
Yeah.
Because we will be, this nonsense of banning smoking must be stopped. So I'm sure I can get, relatively small amounts of funding will go a long way. 1 or 2 permanent staff members, a little bit of, a vehicle for traveling and APA system and a bigger website and secretarial staff to run the head office admin side of things. So it obviously will need money, and the irony is that once a party gets voted into government, the second time around for the campaign they get funding from the taxpayer, but not the first time.
Yeah, that's right. Now, just regarding your party, have you got like a strategic plan that you've put together as to what's going to happen on certain dates so that you can actually get into the 2021 elections?
Yeah, well, as you can see, we have 278 municipalities, so potentially we could contest in 278 municipalities. Seeing that we haven't got guaranteed funding to pay for people to do this, it would need a large amount of volunteers. So we will see how many volunteers we get in the initial marketing exercise. I'm quite confident that there are enough volunteers. I know it, in fact, and let me tell you why. Because in the last elections, give or take a percent, I think only 52% of eligible voters voted in the national elections.
Yeah,
That's half. It shows you how the citizens do not respect our politicians we have now. Otherwise, they'd be more interested in voting. So perhaps if one interacts a little bit better, one can get them interested in exercising their rights as citizens. Surely one can find a few hundred volunteers. I mean, it's ludicrous to assume one cannot. And basically what it needs is and I'm now talking our core leadership, we're going to have to travel. We're going to have to do from town to town and city to city, give speeches and educational. Not just, it's got to be done in person. You can't just hide behind it's all good and well, modern technology, but one's got to go out there. It's, drive to hundreds of towns and speak to the people.
Richard,
we'll need that, otherwise it's not going to work.
Richard, you've just said it's not going to work. I have to tell you, I have severe reservations about establishing a new political party in South Africa, and I'll tell you why. I was involved with a political party in Australia called the One Nation Party when it was formed back in the mid-1990s, and Pauline Hanson is the leader of that party. Now, that party had a spectacular rise, and the only reason it had a spectacular rise was because it was controversial. And the media had a go at it. They tried to tear it apart, but its policies were spot on. The media were out of touch with the public thinking. And that because of that disconnect between the media and the way they were hammering the party and the population that said, hey, this is where we want to go, they got a tremendous amount of support. Now, if I look at your political party, if you don't get some kind of exposure from the media, be it controversy or be it something that you do, you're going to be really battling to get off the ground. And the problem in South Africa is that the media is so controlled. We see it when it comes to reporting on, for example, black on white violence. It hardly ever gets touched unless it's something really gruesome. That's a reality of the situation in the media in South Africa. So it really leaves you in a position where probably the first thing you have to achieve to actually get your party exposure is having something controversial that sets your party as a different political angle to everybody else, because without that the media aren't going to give you any airspace at all.
Very good point. I think we will have to do it like that. If you look back at how Julius Malema did it, he used that par excellence by being the naughty boy and getting free marketing in the newspapers all the time and the TV and the radio. I think one will have to do it like that to get.
Otherwise, you're not going to get off the ground. I can tell you now. because
I think so.
the
It's
exposure is
clarity.
something you need.
Yeah. I think the ban BEE will do the trick.
Yeah, well, ban all racist employment policies. There are a bunch of them.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll be getting a very long list. I'll be asking a lawyer friend of mine who I think he has a list of all these. I think it's looking at about over 190 such laws now.
Right.
I just got an email from Dear South Africa. I don't know if you get the emails.
Yes, I do, yeah.
Yeah, I just speed read it this evening before this live stream, and I see there's yet more of these idiotic, inhuman laws coming. It's just unbelievable. What
Yeah.
a monster the ANC has become, to
Yeah.
put it bluntly.
Well, I think the ANC are actually in a whole lot of trouble. My information is that Ace Magashule and his faction are basically at war with Ramaphosa. And it's all to do, I think, with Magashule's two sons and the tenders that they won in the Free State. And worth millions of rands to do again with the coronavirus funding. And Ramaphosa's coming under a whole lot of stick because Magashule is clearly a corrupt person and has never been put before the courts because he's above the law. And what happened over the weekend was that, this is what I've heard, is that Magashule almost came to blows with Ramaphosa and he basically threatened the guy. And apparently Ramaphosa has now got off his little jelly back, and he's such a weak leader, and he's now kind of calling in the troops to see how we can get this Magashule out of the picture. And that's causing a huge amount of fractions between the actual ANC party. Have you heard any of this?
Yes, I have. You're well informed. I have also.
Okay, is there anything you can add to what I've just said?
Yes, I'll do that in private after.
Okay, all right. Is that something I can put in?
Seeing that is unverified, and you know the laws in South Africa if you spread unverified.
Okay, well, I'll keep my source private. How's that? Okay, now continuing on with your new political party. So the big things that you're looking for right now are people to come on board who believe in the capitalist systems, who want to get rid of BEE. What other type of things are you wanting to impress on people?
I think we need stricter penalties for crimes. As
Yeah,
an
the
example.
murder sentence.
Yes, the farm murders, and I mean, come on, if someone breaks your burglar bars at 2 o'clock in the morning and breaks into your house, please, he's not lost, and you shouldn't have to ask him polite little questions. You should be able to do like they do in Texas, or like it used to be in the old South Africa. So it needs citizens. Okay, the party will also fully support the right of citizens to be armed and to defend themselves, seeing that the police or the security service is never there when they are needed.
Right.
Crime is so out of hand that the victim must defend himself or herself. There is no other choice. There's nothing new when it gets to that barbaric state of when things are completely out of control. I stayed on the plots 2.5 kilometers from Olivenhoutbosch, where the land grab started. I stayed alone in a 5-bedroom farmhouse on a 55 square meter plot with one old dog. I soon had to learn, shortly thereafter, I got another 8 dogs. And had constant plot invasions and robberies and attempted robberies, even a attempted murder on myself. It was a wake-up call.
Right.
It definitely was. And you know what? My neighbors, similar. And even worse is that most of those incidents were not even reported to the police. So the statistics that is out there,
they're bullshit. We know that.
Yeah, and yet even the statistics that is available is horrifically high. And if you look at the farm murders this last July, I think I sent you that email yesterday, a summary of the farm murders and incidents. It's horrifically high again.
Yeah.
It's
just talking about crime, Renell has asked, how will you fight corruption in South Africa? Because it's just so entrenched now.
It is. I mean, that's why the smaller minority or the other parties in parliament, we have this lopsided, the one monster that's got more than 50% of the votes. And it's actually an inefficient system for democracy, where you've got one party having so many votes. It sort of takes the power of the other parties away to, it doesn't work so well in that sense. So we're stuck with a problem. One might think that the way out of it is to educate the voting populace so that they do not vote for a monster party anymore. So, and perhaps we're seeing the dissolution of the ANC, and they will disintegrate and perhaps end up having 20% from the whatever 52, 53, 54%.
Well, we just hope the EFF doesn't take up the slack. That's all. Yeah,
the economic doom fighters. Yes.
Yeah. Now I've got a couple more questions here for you, Richard. Karen and poor Fiona says, I've already asked you a question twice. Don't worry, guys, I've got your questions. Karen Axe asks, please ask Richard to explain why he left the Boerelegioen.
Oh, that was a while ago. Look, I support these organizations entirely. I had a great learning experience in the Boerelegioen. Yeah, why did I leave? Well, look, no, let's keep it like this way. I'm not going to discuss that because there are some private reasons also that I left, and it's not appropriate to discuss it on a public forum. And there is no big problem.
You still support the Boerelegioen?
Oh, fully, and ETMG and 44S, yeah. And it's quite normal for these organizations to split into smaller groups and then some recombine later. It is absolutely normal. It's well, unfortunately, I suppose it's normal, but I know it is if you look into history and all this. And yet these little self-defense organizations are absolutely necessary for a different purpose that we know. And make no mistakes, I'm quite in touch with my friends, even though I'm not a member of any of them anymore. Yeah.
All right. Now Craig Henry has asked, without addressing the Luciferian agenda in churches, religions, government, business, law enforcement, banking and the court system, can South Africa truly recover?
Well, this is an interesting question. This battle obviously needs to be fought on the spiritual front. So if there are, let's take an example, if there are evil elements in the Catholic Church, then they need to be eradicated and sorted out.
Right.
So don't, so it's fix the organization. And it's actually happening. I'm not going to digress too much in it. I can't remember all the names, but was it a Spanish cardinal? But he's quite involved in fixing some of these problems, and so yeah, it can be sorted out, and it must be sorted out. So I do have my own interest in these matters, by the way, also, yeah.
Right. Well, Richard, look, it's been a pleasure talking to you. I think you've got a huge task ahead of you, setting up this new political party. I hope you can get the right people behind you to help you with this, because capitalism is a strategy that has worked around the world, and communism is a destructive strategy. So I think you're on the right step in as far as that's concerned. But it's going to be a huge challenge for you to get this happening, especially as early as 2021. Now, is there anything you would like to say to people who are watching this video now, or who might watch it later, just in closing up this live stream? Because get your message out to people right now.
Yes, well, I think they've listened to a lot of the things, and I'm sure they understood most of it really well. Perhaps give them the email address again, those that would be interested in joining the party.
Or inquiring about the party. Yeah, I'll put that into the side chat right now.
Volunteers, because, so once a person gets elected to a official post, be it as a municipal councillor or a minister of parliament, then that person will get a salary paid for by the state. Not before, because we're on the volunteer stage. But so I'm sure we have thousands of people out there that are highly interested in this. Come on, switch the TV off and plan something. Let's sort these guys out.
Right. Okay. I just want to address the side chat. Thanks, guys, for joining us tonight. I have found it interesting talking to Richard. I do think he's got a huge challenge ahead of him. And it's always good to have goals and to try and do something for your country. But I think if you look at the challenges ahead, it's going to be like climbing a mountain. But
I think I underestimated entirely. Maybe it's good that I don't see the mountain.
Yeah,
when you climb a mountain, you see the first peak, then you think you're there, then once you get there, you see the second peak.
And then you see Everest.
Yeah, like that. Yeah.
What I'm going to do, Richard, is I'm going to put Clinton in touch with you. He's actually building web pages, and he's really battling. So, I'm sure he'd love to help you in that regard.
Excellent.
And just getting back to the moderators. Thanks, guys, for looking after the side chat there. And please, guys, be safe. And Richard, thank you so much for coming on and talking to us about your new political party. And keep in touch with Marlena so we get updates on how it's all going.
Yeah, no, it'll be good in a few weeks to do a follow-on.
Right. All right, guys. I hope you enjoyed tonight's little live stream. Please take care, and we'll catch up soon. Bye for now.
Thanks all. Thanks, Scott.